a.m. This is a great day to be in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The world is full of issues and challenges. We have our challenges here nationally and at the constituency level and the community level. But we can have all of them solved. It's a matter of us being faithful and loyal and committed, one, to the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and two, the Holy Bible, which is the written word of God. And both documents are always right. They are never, ever wrong. I think some people just forget that. It is the supreme law of the land, and then you have the supreme law of God. We have to make up our mind who we're going to listen to. We've been listening to all kinds of different people. This one say that, the next one say something else, and the information is totally warped and contradictory. And we have to analyze what we do based on the written word of God and also the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. I was listening to a show earlier before getting here, and I heard this is a new political party that's coming to the scene to participate in the general election. The Constitution allows political parties, and you always hear this, the Holy Spirit would say something to them, or God said something to them, and you hear all sorts of mannerisms like that. We had this in the last election. You had a whole army of people who came out of the woodworks talking about what God said to them, and can it be authenticated by the Word of God, which is the final authority. And you will find that a lot of those people who are participating, having the God factor in their minds or in their mouths, there was total confusion and misleading of the Bahamian people. I think we need changes in our country. It has to be well organized, and people have to understand you can only have 39 persons sitting in the House of Assembly, not 199, just 39. And you need to have the right persons in the House of Assembly. We haven't been looking at quality. Basically, we've been looking at political parties, party choosing a candidate, send a candidate into a particular constituency, and that's it. And then you are told to support personality. And you can be a member of a particular political party and not even support the particular candidate of that party. But today we're going to be discussing a very important issue. We know that something happened last Saturday night with the United States forces, armed forces invading Iran, knocking out 3 nuclear sites, which they said Iran was working on a nuclear weapon. I don't know how many nations have nuclear weapons at this point. I have to get up to date on that. But I asked the question, who determines who has a nuclear weapon or should have nuclear weapons? Subsequent to that, I understand that there have been retaliations by the Iranian people, or let me say the government, the leading authorities in Iran, because there's a distinct difference between the people of Iran and the government of Iran. Who is doing what? Who is saying what's supposed to be? Apparently, the Iranian people themselves have been handicapped for decades, since 1979 with the Ayatollah. And a lot of people have died, and this is something I believe we have to look at very seriously. Innocent persons living in those countries who are defenseless, cannot help themselves. And there are some, of course, who would speak that the people should rise up and fight the persons who have the guns, who have the ammunition, and all they do is just shoot people dead. A lot of lives have been lost. A lot of blood has been spilled. Now I understand recently Mr. Donald Trump, the President of the United States, has brokered a peace agreement between the people of, well, let me put it this way. I got to get it right now. The government of Iran and the government of Israel. So they're supposed to have a peace arrangement at this particular time. So I guess they would have stopped bombing. I didn't have any bombings today. In fact, I didn't even turn to that. I was listening to some other things. But we'll get up to date on that as we move forward. So events that occurred last Saturday night, right on up to the day. What were the subsequent events that occurred? And why did the president make that decision? Was he constitutionally sound? There are some people who say no, he was not. There are also some who say he had the authority to do it, but he also now needs Congress, the lawmaking body of the United States, to go even further than what he wants to take any further action, because he did say in the tape, and I hope, Mr. Producer, you still have that tape with the presidential remarks that he made. Some other things he said, and that is very crucial. He called Iran a nation that sponsors terrorism. Are there any other nations that sponsor terrorism? In other words, people who go all around the world causing innocent people to die, blowing up buildings, attacking people, even to the point where they have their own people strapped in bombs and running into other persons into a building. Bomb goes off, explodes, takes them out, and knocks a lot of other people out. That's the kind of people you're dealing with, Bahamians. People who are very radical. Iran is a very radical nation, and it takes on the format of the leader. Whoever the leader may be, the nation tends to take on that format, at least some of them or most of them. And of course, you have two sets of religious personalities in Iran, and the majority set is about near 90% or more that run things the way the government wants it to be run. When you have religion and people having their religious beliefs and then their political views all tied into one, and people are willing to die, they call the United States the great Satan, and I guess Israel the little Satan. And whether those things are true or not, we have to examine the evidence, because you have a whole lot of information out there for or against. Some people are against Donald Trump for executing this situation, and how is it going to show up? We have yet to see that, whether the peace arrangement will remain, how long it will remain intact. There's so many moving parts to this particular issue, and I believe a lot of people in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas are not fully prepared to understand. So we're going to have a special guest coming on in this show to give us some insight as to this particular situation, what led up to it, and what are the probable consequences for us as a nation that's one, and also our future in this region, the Caribbean region, and then, of course, the wider region, North, Central, South America, and the rest of the world. What impact would this have? How will there be an alignment of nations? I understand Russia is supporting Iran. We're going to deal with that more as we get into the show. But the point is, you have nations lining up on one side and other nations lining up behind the United States of America, favoring Mr. Donald Trump. And there are some who have this view that the Western press is so obsessed. In a way, you're not really getting the facts. We're not getting the real understanding of what is going on. That is a view that some people have, and we have to look at that as well. We want to get accurate and precise information as best as we possibly can. You know, the Constitution allows for people to express their different views, even if those views are not accurate and precise. So you're going to have people spewing out a lot of information that you have to question the source of the information. Is the source credible? I like to deal with credible sources that are reliable, that are dependable, that are responsible, and persons who have institutional knowledge, who can impart a clear-cut understanding and making it simple for the Bahamian people. We have a tremendous shortage of that in this country, Bahamians. We've had people who we invested in going to meetings, signing agreements, participating in diplomatic situations, and yet still, when they pass off the scene, it dies with them. It never is transferred to the nation as a whole. So you find a lot of people do not even understand a lot of these arrangements, a lot of these agreements, a lot of these treaties, and other things that the government of the Bahamas has signed. I keep hearing every time I turn around, there's another thing signed. Who are they consulting with? I hear they're supposed to do something with the penal code. They're going to be giving out the proposed new penal code to the to persons. I don't know if everybody's going to get it, but I'll get one. That remains to be seen. But I simply hear about these things when they didn't pass it in the House. My representative doesn't say anything to me or to us in our constituency. As far as I know, there's been no widespread discussion. A lot of laws have been passed in this country where there is supposed to be widespread discussion and consultation. That is a strange word to the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, because the man was signing all kind of different things in his office on a Sunday. He's supposed to be in church, but he ain't in no church. He's signing things in his office, signing this agreement about the light, and we're supposed to be getting new sources of energy. Yet we have the economic minister, Alcides, talking about the rise in fuel prices. We have never benefited when the price go down. We never benefit when the price go up. We seem to always be suffering when it comes to fuel prices. We don't feel it in our pockets, Bahamians. I don't know about you. I know about me. But the point is, the cost of fuel is high. The cost of living is high. What about food? What about the fact that we have to import food from different parts of the world, and it has to come by ship? And who knows whether ships are going to be attacked. Some other things will be done. Threats by the Iranians and their cohorts. And so there's supposed to be what is supposed to be a peace arrangement between Israel and Iran. So that remains to be seen how that's going to work out. But we've had these kind of things before, Bahamians. Is history any example? How long will it last? You have a new leader comes along, a new negotiating team comes along, and they have something else different. And so things tend to change. Carnal nature is what it is, Bahamians. That's the real root of real problems affecting the Bahamian people. There is that carnal mind, the carnal mind which is enmity against God. God says when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction breaks out. We've seen that happen time after time after time again because people have selfish motives. And it is apparent that some are saying that Western nations have selfish motives for what they are doing. You don't really get the real understanding from them. You have to search for that. You got to look at what they do. I always say, Bahamians, watch what they listen to what they say, and then watch what they do. What they do is what we have. I think we have a guest on now, Mr. Fane Thompson. Attorney Fane Thompson is going to be our special guest today, and we're going to be dealing specifically with what occurred last Friday night. Is it Friday night? Saturday night, I think it was, when there was this bombing in Iran and 3 nuclear sites were knocked out. And of course, there was consequences that occurred after that. I understand the Iranians did some things to Dubai and some other places where they were sending missiles. We want to welcome Mr. Fane Thompson, Attorney Fane Thompson, who's going to give us an understanding from his view and his understanding of international relations. Mr. Fane Thompson, welcome to
Thank you, Sidney.
Radio
Thank
Network.
you. Thank you, Sidney, and good day to the wider 96.5 audience. Thank you very much, Sidney, for the invite. I appreciate the time.
Mr. Bruce, I hope we haven't lost him.
No, I'm here.
Oh, he's
I'm
there.
here.
Oh, okay. Maybe he was fixing his mic.
I'm here. Yeah.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Thompson. We're listening to
Yes,
you.
I said thank you, Sidney, for the invite. Thank you for
Yes,
the invite.
I heard that.
It's a
Yeah.
pleasure to be on.
I thank you very much.
Mhm.
Now, let us have an understanding, if you can begin, what led up to what happened last Saturday night when the President of the United States decided he is going to knock out 3 nuclear sites in Iran. And of course, some people were not certain as to when that might have happened. And it would appear as if there was a detour when someone think they were going one way, they actually went a different way. And it was so quick. I was thinking that he was supposed to come on at 10 o'clock. He might have come on even before 10. And when I turned on to the radio, I was hearing them talking about the results of what had already happened as of that particular time. Can you begin with that,
Well,
Brother Thompson?
yeah, Sydney, the story about the relationship between Iran and Israel goes way, way back.
Yes.
It doesn't just begin last week. It doesn't begin with the return of Donald Trump to the presidency. But what Trump's return to the presidency signaled for the region was something new. He
Okay.
made it clear. He made it clear after scuttling the original deal between Obama and the Iranian government that he wanted a deal which would result in Iran giving up its nuclear ambitions. And
Yes.
when we say nuclear ambitions, we're talking about the right to have nuclear weapons, as the right to literally turn their nuclear stockpile into a weapon, to weaponize their nuclear stockpile. And he made it very clear over the last few weeks that he was in negotiation with the Iranians on this particular subject matter. And at one point, very, very recently, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, he gave the Iranians about 60 days to come to terms with his demands. And the
Okay.
demand was, let's strike a deal or it's all off the table, anything can happen next. That was clearly a veiled threat for the Iranian government, which they obviously did not take seriously, I
Yes.
guess.
Yes.
The Israeli government was also part of that conversation. And Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, gave an undertaking to the Americans that they would hold off in terms of a military strike until such time as this particular negotiation ended. Well, the negotiation had not ended, but on the 61st day of this process, Netanyahu acted. In fact, he acted by actually attacking Iran. That is how we got here, and that is what signaled the formal entry into this conversation by the American government.
Okay. Let me just ask you this, Tony Thompson. The thing is, who determines who would have nuclear weapons? Is
The
there
International Atomic Energy Agency, the IEA, yes, that organization is in fact the international body which polices the possession, control, and operation of a nuclear arsenal, nuclear weapons, the nuclear industry worldwide.
okay? Now, are there any other rogue states? Let me take the word rogue back. Are there any other nations where they are putting restrictions on them? How do they go about determining who has and who doesn't have?
Well,
They're
well,
set
the inspectors for the IAEA were clear in their pronunciation that Iran's military arsenal had not been weaponized, though
Okay.
they accepted that they were 60% of what is known as a capability. The nuclear the weaponry had not been it had not been weaponized.
Okay.
That was sufficient for the IAEA to conclude that there was no need to in fact, they gave Iran a pass. They said that there was no need to talk about a military intervention, or for that matter, to say that Iran was neglecting its international responsibilities. The Americans and the Israeli government have never accepted that. And first and foremost amongst them is Netanyahu, who he's never accepted that. It was with that as a background, it was in those circumstances that Trump decided, I will give you 60 days to respond, 60 days to prove, to do what you have to do. And then, of course, all negotiations in terms of a new deal, similar to the deal that the Americans earlier had struck with President Obama. It was in the 61st day that patience was finally ended, and the Israelis decided to act unilaterally, without any permission or green light from any international agency which polices that part of our international treaty arrangements across the world.
Okay. Well, it would appear as if nations are taking matters into their own hands.
Well, that's exactly what happened. But there's a certain irony to this, because clearly President Obama's deal with the Iranians was something that Donald Trump did not like. He made it very clear on his return to the White House that one of the first things he would do is to deal with the question of Iran. In fact, he went so far as to which Obama had struck with Iran. And he said that I will negotiate better because I'm a better negotiator. But this negotiation is essentially, as we know, ended in a military strike against Iran. And over the last few days, we've been seeing that unfold. When I say unfold, simply because of the role played by Israel. Because Israel in the Middle East is seen to be one of the Americans' best supporters. And whatever Uncle Sam wants, and that I think coincides with Israeli interest, the Israelis have no shame in telling you they will execute. And that's what they did.
Wow. Boy, this is something. The Israelis, the people in Israel, it would appear to me as if the people in Israel and the people in Iran, they seem to be at odds with each other all the time. And it would appear as if the media is siding up, well, the Western media for that matter, is siding up with those who support the United States and Israel, whereas you have others who are saying that the Israelis are the troublemakers, not Iran, in this particular situation.
Well, let me give you some history so that this may help you. And bear in mind that the position I take is based upon fact. Anything that I say, I would invite people to immediately check so that we may have a robust conversation.
Yes,
First and foremost, Iran has never invaded or attacked any other country on the basis of seeking to enforce the policy position of the United States. Iran has never done that. Iran has never invaded a country on the suspicion of the possession of a weaponized nuclear arsenal. Iran has never done that. I'm not a supporter of the Iranian government. I support the Iranian people, as I support the Israeli people. But what we have here clearly is a situation where Prime Minister Netanyahu felt that in the absence of action, there would be another player in the Middle East, on that part of the world, which was equal to the Israelis in terms of their possession of a weaponized nuclear arsenal. Bear in mind now that it has long been rumored that the Israeli government has been in possession of nuclear weapons or of the atomic bomb, at least 9 of them, for years. This is nothing new, for years. But they feel, and they formed a view, and to and supported them, more so Trump, as opposed to Obama, that should not be. And if in fact that there was a fear of Iran elevating to the level of being in possession of weaponized nuclear weapons, then the Americans should strike. And that's what the Israeli government did. They put the United States in the position where they had to come to their aid. And of course, Trump made it clear after a 60-day period passed by, all bets were off. And I think the Israeli government took advantage of it, launched the attack, and the Americans found themselves obliged to cover their little brother in the Middle East, the state of Israel.
Yeah, okay. So does Israel have nuclear weapons at this point in time?
Yes, it does. That's been an open secret now for the last 20 years. And again, I invite everyone who's listening to this conversation today to check the information that you hear coming from me. Yeah. One thing I have done over the years, one thing I try to do over the years, is to make sure that the information I share is reliable. There is no secret. It's a public secret that the Israeli government has been in possession of weaponized nuclear arsenal for years. It is a madman to assume that relationship is not such, the American and the Israeli relationship, that is not otherwise. In other words, the facts are there. They don't admit it, but everyone knows it, that the Israeli state has a nuclear weaponized arsenal.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting. Okay, now let me just ask this, what we have here with the Iranians and Israel. Now, I understand from news sources that I got over the weekend that there's now a peace arrangement between Israel and Iran. All right. What led up to that? And I understand they're saying that it was reported. I didn't hear actually anything coming from the U.S.
Sidney, that's a fun question. Let me tell you why that's a fun question. Over the many, many years that Israel has literally lorded over most of the countries in the Middle East.
Yes,
it has shown its military superiority in many, many ways, and rivaled by none. Rivaled by none in the Middle East. For the first time after attacking Iran, there was a reaction by a country in the Middle East that the Israelis never expected. They thought it would just be a question of bombing Iran into submission, to the point where the Iranians would say, "Oh yes, we have a weaponized military arsenal, and this is where it is, and we will now divest ourselves of it." What they saw was a response by the Iranian government which blew them away. For the first time in history, major cities in Israel were the subject of attack by the Iranians. Haifa, Tel Aviv, and the great cities of Israel were, for the first time in history, attacked by a non sorry, well, I should say I won't call them Arab, because you call an Iranian an Arab, they'd be offended, by the Persians of Iran.
Okay.
So I say that as a background to explain to you, to say this. That being the case, when the Americans, when the Israelis did launch their attack, the Americans in many ways were obliged to complete the process of ensuring that any weaponized nuclear weaponry held by Iran was dismantled and destroyed. And we saw the destruction of 3 major nuclear sites in Iran over the weekend, supposedly to destroy these nuclear sites. Well, there's no evidence of that in fact those sites have been destroyed, and that the Iranians their nuclear arsenal, if there is one, has been damaged or destroyed. There's no evidence of that. Over the next few weeks, it is said that we will find out more and more about what happened really over the past few days in Iran. I hazard to say that I don't believe that it makes sense for any particular nation on this planet to have a weaponized nuclear arsenal. It makes no sense. But having attacked and having joined that attack, and Trump achieved the objective of okay, you guys, you guys have had your time now, and the Americans went in and they did what they had to do, and now Trump is now calling for peace. That peace is brittle. It's going to be delicate, because the Israelis are very, very upset, because for the first time they have been attacked in ways which only they have attacked countries in the Middle East for the last 30, 40 years. Only the Israelis have been doing that. For the first time, the Iranians have shown the same ability in terms of weaponry and in terms of long-range, very devastating rockets. So we have a new Middle East today, but it's a new Middle East where Iran has been checked. And to the extent that Iran has been checked of its military arsenal ambitions, I think that's a good thing. The way it happened, I don't like. Nobody likes. Nobody can like that. You don't want to see wars taking place with people dying. But clearly, we have a new Middle East today, and Donald Trump really surprised me yesterday. In fact, this morning it was amazing what he had to say. He really surprised me when he said, "Listen, this thing is finished. You guys have had your tit for tat. We've blown up these particular sites. It's over. The Israelis don't really like the result, and the Iranians don't normally like the result. That's the best kind of ceasefire to have. Both sides sucking their teeth and upset. So we look forward to a quieter Middle East. We look forward to a Middle East where Iran does not have that militarized arsenal, but the Israelis now must also be disarmed, because clearly they have nuclear weaponized a huge arsenal in their possession. There's no secret about that. Everybody in the world accepts that, except they will not publicly admit it.
They won't publicly admit some things.
No, they won't publicly admit it. No.
So the statement that he made, and we had played it in the show on Monday, could be very well misleading, because according to him, everything has been smashed, completely destroyed.
Well, we don't know.
We don't. You said we don't know. I understand that part of it.
But Sidney, we can even go further. We know that the satellite photos of what's been going on now since the actual attack on those sites, especially the site at Fordo, I think in northern Tehran, northern Iran. There's no evidence that it has been destroyed. There is evidence that it has been hit, but there's no evidence that the nuclear facility itself, the bomb making part of that nuclear facility, has been impacted. And that's the irony is this, the photos have become available and seen on television, showing truckloads of cars taking stuff out of that particular facility before the actual attack. So we don't know what the position is yet to this very day.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I guess as time goes on, we'll begin to understand more clearly what is going on there. This is Professor Sidney McGarter, Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network. My special guest is Ms. Attorney Thane Thompson. We're talking about the incident that occurred on Saturday night where the U.S. bombed Iran at the 3 nuclear sites, and which was reported to have been completely destroyed. That is, we got to put a question mark to that now, because we are seeing other things coming to the surface, and of course other people have their different views. And did he have the authority to do what he did? Did he have to have Congress? We can discuss that as well. Did he take it upon himself as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States to just go in and obliterate other people's territory? In fact, it was reported even before that they'd taken over the skies, and that's another thing again I want to discuss. This is Professor Sidney McGarter, Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network 99.5 FM. We'll be back after this break. Reported by the president himself, destroyed 3 nuclear sites that were in Iran. And of course, the other nations, as we understanding now, have nuclear weapons. Israel has nuclear weapons, even though some people are not willing to admit that. And so we have such situations like that. Some people will just say what they want to say and do what they want to do. But I always say, listen to what they say, watch what they do. Because some things people are not prepared to admit. And that's carnal nature, Bahamians. That is what we have. In all of us, that carnal nature is there. Something you have to keep fighting for the rest of your natural life. That is the way it is. So you're going to have people who will say things, do things that are not really in the best interest of the Bahamian people. What is now in the best interest of the Israeli people? What is now in the best interest of the Iranian people? We have 2 governments, the Israeli government and we have the Iranian government. And then you have the people of those countries. And it seems as if my understanding is correct, that the people do not apparently have any direct involvement in what is going on the ground. Attorney Thompson, is that the understanding as it stands now, that basically the governments of these 2 nations are dealing with this situation without the input of the people of the 2 respective nations?
To a large extent, that the democracies supposedly of Iran and Israel are very much alike. In Iran, it is run by a theocratic group of men, and in Israel, it's also run by a Zionist theocratic leader known as Benjamin Netanyahu. One thing they have in common is that to the extent that the questions of war and peace are decided by the government in the absence of any real input by their citizens. In Israel, to some extent, you may have some public dissent or displays of public dissent as regards war, but on the question of the Middle East and what the Israeli government does, the Jewish people, I shouldn't say the Jewish people, the people of Israel generally give tacit support. Now, and as regards the Iranian people, they have less. And I must be fair. It is a theocratic state led by a man known as Khamenei, who is Islam, who is Muslim, and there are very few opportunities for public dissent to say, for example, or to make the statement, listen, there's no need for no war. We don't want any war. And so your short answer is that there are two strong, really tight governments who operate in the Middle East.
Boy, that really, that really creates an even further problem, because it's at the whim fancy of these particular personalities, and they can make very bad decisions which affect millions and millions of people.
Absolutely.
And that's not a good position to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And so those of us who have even better conditions in other places around the world ought to appreciate life, because these people are dying every living day. I just heard about some reports just before coming to the station about some people in Israel dying.
Again, Sidney, as I said earlier, for the first time, the Jewish state has directly come under attack by a country from that region, and not just attack, effective attack. In the past, you would have Hamas rockets going over into southern Israel, no big deal. For the first time, supersonic, hypersonic weapons are actually flying into Haifa and Tel Aviv, the capital of this country. Right. And it is getting worse, because the ability by the countries of that region to respond to Israel, their abilities are improving. And that's not a good thing, because, Israel is led by a man who basically feels that the only people who should live and not die in that part of the world is Benjamin, not Netanyahu. He's not the kind of fellow you want to take on in a fight. He's a very serious man. He's not the kind of fellow who will stand down. So even today, when Trump said, "Stand down, gentlemen, we got a deal," and Benjamin Netanyahu sent his fighters off to go and bomb Tehran one more time. And Trump had to tell him, using very strong language on TV today, if you saw that interview, I told you these fellows don't know what the F they're doing. He actually said that.
Yeah, okay.
Trump actually said that. So it shows you how serious that particular issue is, and how serious it's becoming very, very serious. To the extent that we have to decide if we want to have a world where in the Middle East there's so many crazy men, theocratic extremists to lead our world. You have in Israel the so-called people who call themselves the chosen people. Now some of us may agree or disagree, but the Israeli people do not want war like that, and I'm sure the Iranian people do not want war like that. And no God wants its people to have to be subjected to that kind of consistent barrage and attack. The Middle East is a very dangerous place, very dangerous place.
Yes, that is true, because we've seen that, and a lot of lives being lost consistently. Now, since the situation with the peace agreement that has been broken, could you shed more light on that for us? Because I'm not quite sure what all the circumstances are surrounding it, as we know up to this point. When was it brokered, and what may be some of the terms as it relates?
It was supposedly brokered over the last few days. Okay. Donald Trump, I think, after having successfully instructed his aircraft to go into Iran and destroy the 3 sites, I think he formed a view that his particular job had been completed. That in fact he had disabled the Iranian march to nuclear weaponry, and he felt that his job had been completed. Now Netanyahu on the other side is a different kind of fellow. He wants regime change, but you see, little Israel is too small to overpower Iran by itself. So I guess he gathered and he hoped that Trump would buy into the idea, not just of removing the so-called ability for a weaponized nuclear arsenal, but also remove the so-called Khamenei, the religious theocrats who run Iran from political power. But that's not something that Trump was interested in. Trump was interested in sending his guys in, and they did their job based upon what Trump tells us. We'll soon find out in a few months' time. I suspect that they didn't completely succeed, but he did what he did, and he told the Israelis and he said to the Iranians, "It's now done." Now, the Iranians were, if they're smart, if they wanted to, you don't want to take on the United States. You can't win that. You can't win that particular fight.
That one, no.
You can't win that fight. But he took on, but they valiantly took on the Israeli government, and they did well. They fought them to a draw. That's for the first time in the Middle East. So I say that to say that in many ways, what we're looking at is a situation where governments responded to Trump's threats. Trump said stop, and he started cussing. He started using choice four-letter words. He said, these people don't know what they're doing. And he started cussing. So it shows you that he was upset that the Israelis would not stand down, and that he was upset that the Iranians were not being reasonable in terms of settling this matter and ending it. But supposedly now it's been quiet for the last few hours, 10, 15, 20 hours. They don't seemingly, they've stopped attacking each other's cities and installations and institutions. So we have calm now, which is supposedly going on. And we hope it continues because, this it only benefits the madmen of the region. And
yes,
Trump.
It does.
It does not benefit anybody else.
Nobody else.
It doesn't benefit anybody else. Netanyahu should be in jail. Khamenei should not be the leader of a democratic country. But this is what we are looking at. This is what we're looking at in the Middle East.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Donald Trump is not interested in regime change.
No. He's interested in dismantling Iran's military weaponized. Yes. He's interested in destroying those sites where the nuclear weapons were being designed, as far as his intelligence tells him. Yes.
Right. Yes. This is what he had made in that statement we played on Monday.
Yes.
So he seemed to be satisfied with that. But
Sidney, you got to get a chance to listen to that statement he made today. You will crack up laughing. You will say to yourself,
I haven't heard it. I got to ask my producer, please.
Just tell your producer, he has to bleep out the F word. He has to bleep out the F word. But Trump actually said these people in the middle.
If he can obliterate that,
if he can pull it up, it's not very long. It's about 2 or 3 minutes. You will have a laugh and a hoot. And what it shows me, as much as I don't like that man's politics, as much as I don't like, and many of us do not like that man's politics, as much as we feel that the American people made a mistake, today I developed a level of regard for that man which impressed me. He literally was saying, I don't want no third world war. I don't want no nuclear war. You all shut this down. And he said it. He said it publicly. Shut this down. And his little brother, Netanyahu, had to listen.
I think he had no alternative.
No, he had no choice.
They had no choice there, yes. Yeah.
That's right.
Well, the Americans, they voted for Mr. Donald Trump. He'll be there for the next 4 years. And
that's correct.
He has some very strong language, some strong action. And we hope that things could be a little bit better, because at this point in time now, people are trying to struggle with living, and they want to see improved conditions as we move forward. And you don't want all this constant bloodshed going on. But let's look at the people of the two nations now.
Yes.
What would their future look like if these trends continue, if this peace treaty holds out for a period of time? What are we looking at as far as Iran is concerned? Because you got two separate entities here, where in one case, in both cases, you have commanding personalities. Religion plays a role. The Zionists on one side and the autocratic people on the other side with the Iranians. They have different religious beliefs underlying everything that they do. What do we look at when we see what is the potential future for the people of Iran, the potential future of the people of Israel?
I'm going to give you an answer which can take 2 or 3 essays. But in short, the big problem that they have. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. The big problem that they have is Palestine, and that is a huge issue. The Iranians are viewed in that particular region by the Israelis as being sponsors of the Palestinian struggle for self-determination. And the Israelis have developed over many, many years a serious hatred for the Iranian regime. And the Iranian regime, by the same token, has developed an attitude because they perceive that Israel is now conducting a genocide in Palestine. No, a genocide in Gaza and, of course, on the West Bank. That is something which has been going on for years. Unless that fundamental issue is addressed, I do not see the relationship between the Iranian government and the Israeli government really being improved. And the irony is this: Iranians are not Arabs; they are Persians, but they seem to be the biggest supporters of that fight for liberation in Israel, bigger than, for example, the Arab countries of Qatar, Kuwait, Egypt, Jordan, and Lebanon. The Iranians are the people that the Palestinians seemingly have now turned to for support in this and waging their battle against what's been going on in Palestine. I guess now in Gaza for so long. And remember, this is a big conversation. It didn't begin. Yes, it didn't start a few days ago, a few weeks ago. Yes. This enmity, this hatred between the leadership of Iran and the leadership of Israel is deep-seated, and it goes back. It goes back for as long, really, as the state of Israel existed.
Yes.
Has existed.
All the way back to 47, 48.
All the way back. And they have taken the view that the creation of the state of Israel was an imperial design fostered by the British and the French.
Yes.
And upon a society that was dominated essentially by Arabs, or Palestinians at the time. They never called themselves Arabs. In 1947, they were known as Palestinians. In fact, Golda Meir tells the story that this term Jewish is something new to her because she grew up in Palestine and she always referred to herself. This is the first prime minister now the second one, I believe, of Israel, Golda Meir, the lady. So Palestine has always been a vexing problem for that particular part of the world. And let me say this too, just so that I don't get myself into trouble, Sidney.
Yeah.
You can have one of two views: the story of the nation of Israel and where it came from, which is either biblical, or you can have what I would call the secular view. The very theocratic view is that they're the chosen people and God put them there, and that's why this is happening. And everybody else who's trying to take them out, they are evil, they are wicked people. And the children of Israel are somehow threatened, and we must protect them by all means. The secular view is that they are people who came in 1947 and they were placed there by the Balfour Declaration, the British and the French, and they became occupiers. And since then, a war of independence has been waged by the Palestinians, who've been moved about and moved around in that particular part of the world. That continues until this very day. When I say that war, I should say that struggle, not a war. And that's where the big difference is between many of the Arab nations in that part of the region, but most definitely the Iranians, again, who are Persians. They are not Arabs, they are Persians, but they're very passionate about their support of the Palestinian people, along with the Houthis and the Yemenis, who seem to be very passionate, and Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, and Hezbollah. So if you listen to the dynamic, and if you read some independent assessments of the history of that region, you'll begin to see a different picture than the picture which is painted by the Western media. And in all of that, you have to again bear in mind now the extremism of some of those governments in terms of their religious and their theocratic extremism, not just Israel, but also the Arab countries. There's something you have to put into context. That's something you really have to put into context and to be very wary of in terms of trying to understand what's been going on in that part of the world for so long. I have had an opportunity to study that and review that for many years. People just don't know that about me. I have an opportunity to study that and review that for many, many, many years. And I think it's always a sad thing that that the people of that region have been killed and massacred. And to this very day, Gaza being bombed. Gaza being bombed, and there seems to be no effort by world governments to stop what's going on in Gaza.
Yes. Isn't there a move afoot to remove these people completely out of the Gaza Strip?
Yeah. Yes, that's what the Israeli government would wish. They want to ethnically cleanse that region and to establish greater Israel. And that is now. I don't think they're even pretending now that they want the people of Gaza to be removed. If you listen to Israeli politicians, and they're always on YouTube, they make it very clear what they want. They want a Gaza free of Palestinians, for reasons which have to do with their view that Hamas, something that a lot of Palestinians support, is still not accepted. Has forsworn itself to the destruction of Israel, and Israel has the right to exist. But of course, equally, the people of Gaza have a right to exist, and that's the problem. That's the problem. somehow the two demands are not being met.
Now
You know?
that's going to be a difficult one to settle because the views are so strong on either side.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, as a result of this hatred being built up over these many decades,
yes, yes,
1947 coming on up to now, it's going to be
yes,
extremely difficult to
mhm,
really wig that over because of carnal nature being in human beings. And, people don't want to admit when they're wrong.
yes,
And
yes.
that just adds to the problem where we are going today. So it's going to be extremely difficult, but it remains to be seen how long this proposed treaty peace agreement is going to last. Because when we look at history, we're going to find that it may last for a period of time, then it breaks out again. Scripture says when they say peace and safety, sudden destruction breaks out. You don't know when, you don't know why it may even happen at that point, but it just happens. And then you have a lot of people in the midst who are caught in it, and they end up losing their lives. And then people are told to move from one place to another. Where are you supposed to be going? How do you move 10 million people? How do you keep 10 million people safe? You tell them, come out of this city. Where do you go?
Mhm, mhm.
Is anything being done, Attorney Thompson, to help these people, to uh, cause them, excuse me, to be safe while this conflict is going on? Because to me, from all reports I am getting, all I'm seeing dead bodies all over the place, more and more people dying, and there seem to be no support for the average citizen in these countries.
This is the problem. And of the 70, I think there's 37 or 40,000 people who have died so far in Gaza.
Yes.
Two-thirds of them are women and children.
Oh
Two-thirds
my.
of them are women and children. And every day in Gaza, 15, 20, 30, 100 people are being killed. Again, huge numbers of them being women and children. They are not combatants. They're just women and children trying to survive.
Trying to.
It is a sad thing, and I'm sure we have some sympathizers for Israel out there, and that's fair enough. But clearly, it is the design of the Israeli government to encourage those people, not to encourage them, to force them into the Sinai desert. That is to say, out of Israel, out of southern Israel, which includes the so-called confines of Gaza, and so that the Egyptians will assume control and care of them. Well, the Egyptians are not responding. So what is happening now is that Gaza has now 2 million people still there, and each
Wow.
day they're being subjected to this bombing and this and so forth. It's unfortunate. Now, having said that, let's be fair to the state of Israel, because I know we have those questions out there too. Israel was the object of an October 7th surprise attack by Hamas, which resulted in the death of a number of Israelis, something that happened that never happened before. As a
Yes.
result of that, Netanyahu, or I think in his cohorts, have sworn that we must now push these people into the desert, out of Israel, and that way we will secure peace in Israel. Well, that final solution is not going to work, because seemingly no Arab countries are coming to the aid of those Gazans, and Gaza, there are 2 million people. That's clearly a genocide. If you want to just one day drop well, not even drop a bomb, it's a slow genocide. If you want to do that, then it's clear to the world. It's clear for the world to see. However, we need peace. We need peace because Gaza is now.
We do
Sorry.
need peace. Attorney Thompson, I think I have a call on the line. My
Sure,
producer
sure,
indicating to me. Just hold a minute. Caller,
sure.
the caller's gone? Okay. Mr. Thompson, I was so much interested in what you were saying about the women and the children.
Yes.
I've heard a lot of slaughteration of women and children. The men, I don't know, I guess they kill off all the men, or most of them, because women and children seem to be the ones who get the brunt of this kind of abuse in these circumstances.
That is true, and we're looking at it, and we could look back at even our colonial history, the colonial
Yes.
history of
Oh,
Black
yes.
people around the world. What is
Yes.
going on in Gaza is literally worse than, in my view, what went on in apartheid South Africa just before Mandela came to power. What we
Yes.
have is a situation where people are systematically being killed, and they are powerless to defend themselves.
Of course.
The Israeli government has formed a view that the events of October 7th, which cannot be justified, are unforgivable. And Netanyahu, that's his style. notwithstanding the many criminal charges which are pending against him. He's now maintaining his power, his position in power, by being the warmonger prime minister.
Yes.
And again, it's a dangerous mix when a man feels so totally caged that he must do anything, and by all means, to stay in power. We commiserate. We have to commiserate, Sidney, with the people of Gaza. We have to commiserate with any people anywhere in the world who are going through that kind of challenge. We must also commiserate with those who lost their loved ones on October 7th, 2024.
Yes. Yeah, we do.
2023. We have to, because that is really the part of the genesis of this response by the Israeli government against the people of Gaza.
Yes. And that when that October 7th, that was on one of the high holy days when this attack was made against the people of Israel. So, it really is troubling to us when these kind of things happen, because so many people are caught up in it. They lose loved ones, their property destroyed, their lives are all mixed up, and people hardly ever recover from these things, Attorney Thompson. It seems to me as if it's long range. It goes from one generation to the next.
Yes, it does, and because of this historical legacy of Palestinians, essentially, being subjected to this kind of treatment, Palestinians have developed a very, very hard skin, and you can see that because
Yes.
they still support Hamas
Yes.
in Gaza, and in the West Bank they support Fatah, which is led by
Yes.
a different Palestinian leader, but he's not as they're not perceived to be as effective as Hamas. But that kind of struggle, that guerrilla struggle, does not work in the context in which they find themselves, because it's an open air prison essentially, and you can't move about. The underground attempt at moving arms and so forth has been severely damaged by an effective Israeli Israeli incursion underground. So we need peace. And we need peace by men and women who are prepared to live with each other, not by Netanyahu. He's part of the past. He is the past. He must be invited to go into the doldrums of history and take a break. All right,
Yeah.
and until that happens, and until the Israeli people decide we don't want another leader like that. We are a powerful nation. We do not need to be presiding over a systematic and slow genocide in Gaza. We do not need to be presiding over that. We don't need this man, because he will always keep us focused in that direction. And then you have to deal with Hamas, the guerrilla struggle. That doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. And you have to find ways of better dealing with it, rather than just trying to brutalize persons and you know.
Yeah, I think we're going to go to another break. Attorney Thompson, this is Professor Sidney McGarr. Walter Thompson is having an interesting discussion with Attorney Fane Thompson on this issue between Israel and the Iranians, and of course the involvement of the Americans. And we're going to look at the involvement of other nations now that they're supposed to be relatively, but at least the fighting has subsided to a point. But we have other nations, Attorney Thompson, lining up behind the Americans, lining up behind, and even I understand Russia's being lining up behind Iranians. This is Professor Sidney McGarr, Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network 99.5 FM. We'll be back after the break. FM. My special guest today is Attorney Thompson. We're discussing what happened last Saturday and with the bombing of the three sites, nuclear sites in Iran. And of course, the President of the United States said it was a smashing success. Now we're beginning to see some other things. As new information comes to light, Bahamians, we're going to bring it to you. What may appear sometimes to be so is not necessarily the case. So as you dig deeper and you see more clearly what is going on, just like this conflict between the Iranians and the people of Israel, it goes way back to 1947, 1948, and there has been hatred. Human beings have carnal nature, and you have this building of hatred on both sides. Excuse me. Particularly if people are being abused. And it's very unfortunate that women and children take the brunt of the abuse. And that is not a good thing, because innocent children die. They want a future. They didn't ask to be here, but, we have to learn to protect the children, because this seems to be a major problem when violence of this kind breaks out. No protection for the women, no protection for the children. And so you have leaders, strong armed individuals who are thinking about their own pocket, their own selves, either getting money or fame or whatever else it is they're looking for, while people die. Thousands and thousands of people dying, even probably hundreds of thousands of people over a period of time, losing their lives. Because somebody or some people decide this is the way it's going to go. The interests of people are not even considered. And that is very dangerous, Bahamians, to be living in that kind of environment. So those of you who have the opportunity to be able to stop it before it happens, because sometimes some of us are given opportunities, we play around with it, and we talk this, we talk that, but we don't hit the nail on the head. Do not wait until it gets like how it is in Israel. Do not wait until it gets like how it is in Haiti. Do not wait until it gets like how it is in Sudan and other places around the world, where it is going to take a very long time for the possibility of them coming back to where they were before the conflict started. And as we can see with Israel, it has gotten worse over the years. And now you have this outbreak of war, and more people are suffering. Attorney Thompson, it seems as if when these things happen, the suffering is long term, and people are looking for a future in their country. And then sometimes you have, even when leaders change, another madman comes on the scene. I'd like you to speak to that, Attorney Thompson.
One of the challenges, Sidney, thank you for the question. One of the challenges I think the human race is facing, as we move deeper into the 21st century, is the whole question of democracy and sovereignty and the right of people to and so forth. In fact, let me say pointedly, we have on planet Earth the ability to feed and to care for every human being on this planet and to wipe out poverty overnight. Sidney, there are some men and women in the world who are worth as much as let's talk about Mr. Musk himself. $300 and something plus billion, and multiple men and multiple women with a kind of wealth. On the one side, we have tremendous wealth and so forth, and on the other side, we have tremendous poverty.
Yes.
That's one aspect of this conversation. The other aspect of the conversation is that some men in this world still believe that the final solution to any conflict that they must have is war. And war includes enemy, and war by any means necessary. So, for example, the contemplation of nuclear war in the Middle East is a contemplation of the end of the human race. And when I say the end of the human race, the end of the human race as we know it, had the Russians decided to come to the aid of the Iranians, the Americans would have been supporting the Israelis. The Russians did not move. Even though they have a form of a military relationship with the Iranians, they did not move. In fact, President Putin talked about it. He talked about it and how far the Russians would go. He publicly stated he supported Iran, but that's as far as it went. By the same token, the Chinese have said they supported the Iranians, but they did not move. And there are many other countries in the region who said they supported the Iranians, but they did not move. We are now operating in a theater on the verge of nuclear war between powerful nations. And we cannot afford the lunatics like Benjamin Netanyahu and Khamenei to protect the human race. So human beings have to now begin to make the argument that it's time for a new dispensation and a better democracy. Because you can't have mullahs and madmen like anticipating the construction of military weaponry simply to say, my cojones, my balls are as big as yours, Netanyahu. And Netanyahu, who doesn't think very straight, thinking, well, I go into jail if I stand on as prime minister anyhow, so let me try to hold on. So he does anything which answers his needs. The Middle East is like a powder keg, and it is so dangerous that the call for a better democracy worldwide is absolutely urgent. Because if the Jewish people, I submit, if the Israeli people and the Iranian people had a chance to sit down, they would sit down and talk. They wouldn't fight. They wouldn't pull guns on each other, and they wouldn't bomb each other. They'd find a way to work things out. But we are sitting on a powder keg created by the logic of a hegemonic rule of the world for a long time by Western nations, and not in a democratic way. And now that the old norms no longer apply, they still feel that they can enforce themselves upon us by simply saying, well, he should not have nuclear weapons, but Israel should. That is a great hypocrisy. That is the greatest contradiction. That the state of Israel can have nuclear weapons, but Iran cannot have. As far as I'm concerned, neither should have. And until human beings begin to assert themselves on the planet, extraterritorially, that is to say across borders, without regards for their leadership, we're going to continue down this road of near madness. We came close. The doomsday clock. So the doomsday clock was ticking when Netanyahu bombed Iran. The doomsday clock started to tick. Because the worst kind of move could have been for Netanyahu to feel that he could have fired off a limited nuclear a weapon with limited nuclear potential. That is also possible. You don't really have to send a big gun in. You could send in a limited bullet, not a big bullet. And people like Netanyahu are dangerous, and the Khamenei is dangerous because they don't seem to respond to democratic pressure. They respond to their balls, to their egos, to their religious fanaticism, to the fact, for example, that Uncle Sam will protect me. That's Netanyahu. Uncle Sam will protect me. Trump will come in and protect me. Trump will come in and allow me to do what I want. Thank God, Trump said, it's time now to check this foolishness. I've done it for you. Stand down. But that's the danger the human race faces. It's a serious danger. We are at the crossroads for the human species. We are at the crossroads.
Mr. Thompson, I could not disagree with anything you just said. It's very, very scary. And I think nations around the world are going to have to look at this very seriously because it endangers the lives of all citizens on the planet. That's why I devoted this entire week to talk about this event, the repercussions of it, the political implications for nations. This is why I'm saying that those who have a stronger semblance of democracy, they need to get it stronger and not allow ourselves to fall into disrepair. We're seeing it all around us. And unfortunately, when you get these mad people in power and they make their own decisions without regard to the welfare of others, it creates all kinds of problems which can last and linger for a very long period of time. You see it happening in Sudan. You see it happening in Haiti. You see it happening in other countries around the world. And this is where people need to understand the importance of participation in the democratic process to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand, Mr. Thompson.
And quite rightly, Sidney, human beings will have to do that. I'll give you a classic example. Let me just share with you real quick, because I think you mentioned this much early on.
Yeah.
Article 1, I believe, of the U.S. Constitution, is it Article 2, speaks to the power of the president to make war. Speaks to the power of the president to make war. Now, when the founders of American democracy back in the day sat down and they designed the American Constitution, they made it very, very clear that before a president can determine to bomb any country, just by making a unilateral decision, he must obtain the support of Congress, and he must make a war declaration. Trump did neither one of those. What he did was recognizing the challenge that Israel was facing, well, the purported challenge in his mind, he decided to act unilaterally. Democracy, it was designed by the founders to protect against the strong man, to protect
Good.
against overreach. And this is something that also should have concerned us in this whole incident.
But definitely, but Thompson, we're going to come back to that because I want to
Sure.
discuss that even further. I have a call on the line. Caller,
Sure.
you're live on air. Go ahead, please.
Hey, how you doing? How you guys doing, man?
Hello,
Good
how
day.
are you?
Okay, man. You know, I'm listening to your speaker,
Attorney Fane Thompson.
Dr. Shane Thompson.
No, Attorney Fane Thompson. Fane.
Okay,
Thompson.
whatever his name is, Mr.
Yeah.
Thompson. You know, I listening carefully to what he is saying, but he does not understand that region. He does not understand what is happening in the world today.
Okay, stop right there. Stop right there. I'm going to
No, let me finish.
No. I think you said, I'm not going to cut you, but I just want you to stop because I think I want Mr. Attorney Thompson to answer that because he has been speaking on this issue. He has written about it for a long period of time. Mr. Thompson, would you answer the challenge that the gentleman has put there?
That is his opinion that I do not understand the region. I think I intimately understand the region because I've studied the sense. Well, I'm not just studied. It's been part of my desire to understand the world. That I've looked at the region for many years. I've spoken about this issue on a number of occasions, and this is nothing new to me. The Middle East is a powder keg, which we must be very concerned about, and that's just the position that I have. Trust me, I've been at this for a while.
Okay, caller, you can continue.
Okay, let me finish this. See, he does not understand Israel. And what I want to talk about, the spiritual part of this, not the physical part, because all he's talking about is the physical part. He does not understand, that's why I'm talking, he does not understand the region. And if he understands the region, he'll understand the spiritual part of this. Because number one, God created this world for Israel. God is going to destroy this world because of Israel. Where was Jesus born? Israel. Where did Jesus die? Israel. Where was the resurrection? Israel. Where is Jesus returning? Israel. Where the church was born? Israel. Where is the battle of Armageddon? Israel. Where is the witness of the two witnesses? Israel. Where is the abomination of desolation going to take place? Israel. We must understand what God said. Israel, you are the light of the world. Now, let me say something else. I hear him talking about Netanyahu. He does not understand Netanyahu. God placed Netanyahu there. And when God ready to move him, God will move him. Netanyahu is doing what God said. And let me say something else. You talk about Trump. Trump ain't God. Trump is not God. God started this war, and God is going to end this war when he feels right.
Wait a minute, caller. Stop the caller. Stop him right there. He's saying God started this war with the slaughteration of all of these people and carnal-minded men making decisions that are so awful because people are carried away by their lust, caller. Are you telling me God inspired these men to do all of this damage and they have nothing to do with it? They're making their own decisions? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. Let's go back to history. Let's go way back to history. When Isaac was in battle with the Amorites and all their kites, he prayed to God, and you know what he said? Oh God, you are the one who start war and end war. Okay? See, we can talk and talk as much.
But caller, how do you know? How do you know for sure what happened on let's say I think Saturday, and this war that started recently?
Okay, this war started. That's what I want to get to. Where this war is gonna end. It's gonna stop. But it's leading us now to the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. It is leading us to the temple of Jerusalem, and also leading us to the battle of Gog and Magog, which is Ezekiel 38 and 39. That's where it's leading us. And I'm going to say this to all your listeners. If they don't know God, they better get to know God now, my brother. They better get to know God, because this what we're seeing here now is leading to another thing. And you ain't see war yet. There's a big war going to come, and it's coming soon. This war between Israel and Iran is a joke. What you seeing now?
Oh, okay, Carl. Thank you for your contribution. Attorney Thompson, do you have a response?
Sidney, one of the first things I said when you invited me, when the show began, was that that you will hear today two views.
Yes.
One is going to be the view which is fostered and promoted by theocrats, and the other one which is going to be a view which is fostered by what I would call from a different point of view. That is my view. I look at things historically and systematically. I do not see, and no disrespect intended to those who are listening right now. Please understand me. I do not see that my views ought to be steeped in religiosity.
Yes.
I've looked at this region since 1947, 1948. The state of Israel was not created by, the state of Israel was created by two countries, the British and the French.
And the British.
It was designed to secure the lives of British and French European Jews, and they decided that that part of the world, Palestine, it was never called Israel. There was a part of, and historically it was called Israel, but up until that particular point it was known as Palestine, and it was created essentially to house Jews who were trying to escape the punishment and the suffering of European racism. That's why therein lies the reason for the existence today of the state of Israel. But it has changed. It has changed. The state of Israel that we knew it going way back, it's not the state of Israel that we have today. The state of Israel today is a militaristic organization which is designed to maintain the hegemony of the United States in the Western world, in the world context, in the Middle East. It's all about oil. It's not about some biblical notion about the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. I don't accept that. I don't accept that. But don't think that I'm disrespecting you and saying that I don't accept that. This is just the view that I have as to how history ought to be, as to how my history ought to be or to unfold. I cannot justify the slaughter of the people of Gaza based upon some religious precept. I cannot justify an attack on Syria based upon some religious precept. I cannot accept the hasty attack on Iran, as much as Iran's leaders may deserve it, based upon some biblical precept. That's not how I analyze and how I view the world. I respect your view. I only ask that you respect mine.
No, but that's understandable, because people have religious views which are not biblically sound.
Yeah.
And I respect that too, because there's freedom of religion, and I allowed him to express himself, because the thing is, you did tell me, and we had discussed this the night before, that this would have happened, because started to go on Monday.
Oh yeah, I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming
too. But we're trying to be as reasonable as we possibly can as the host of the show. And you have two divergent views, the Western view, and of course you have some autocratic views of people who have these religious beliefs in their head. And, religious fanaticism is something that's fanning these things, some religious underlings. But the point is that, carnal nature, I think the caller needs to understand that in every single person, there's carnal nature. That's how God designed us and created us. The carnal mind is enmity against God. It is not subject to the law of God. Neither indeed can be. Romans 8 and verse 7. The thing is that I cannot accept the fact that God himself would want that kind of slaughteration on human beings. On human beings.
Exactly.
To me, it doesn't line up with the God of the Holy Bible. Because carnal nature, men are led away by their own carnal lusts.
Exactly.
They have their own way. They want oil. They want power. They want this. They want that. And they're fighting for the oil. I thought we were getting, Attorney Thompson, new sources of energy. But the oil is very prominent. Even our Minister for Economic Affairs was talking about the oil, the price of oil. And it doesn't seem as if, and I said this yesterday in the show, we don't seem to benefit one either when it goes up or when it comes down. We're not benefiting. The price of oil is very high. We're feeling that in our pockets every single day when you go to the gas station, and it costs you so much money just to travel on this island 21/7. It's very expensive. We got a proliferation of vehicles, proliferating the cars, you burn a lot of that fuel just waiting in line for the light to change. And so it puts a strain on the pockets of the average person. That's what we feel every single day. So as long as people have an excuse to raise the price for food, to raise the price of oil, to raise the price for this, to raise the price for that, you can't tell me that's the way God wants things to be. That has to be carnal nature to the core, rotten carnal nature, where people have a desire to hurt, to destroy, and harm people. That's how I see that. And so while I respect his view, his religious views, that's fine. That's all well and good. And we're trying to have a sensible discussion on this particular issue. But world leaders have their own minds set up and they make some hard decisions which are not always necessarily in the best interest of people. That is why those of us who have the opportunity to participate in the parliamentary process, the democratic process, that is probably the best form of government that we have on the planet today. Because when you look at Iran, when you look at Sudan, when you look at Haiti, when you look at all these other countries where this turmoil has really taken its heavy toll on these nations. People are out there as refugees. People had to move out of the cities, move out of their places, and now they're hiding somewhere or trying to save their own lives because they couldn't carry the building with them. They couldn't carry the cars with them or whatever else they had. They're living this big time life. But these are the kind of things that we will continue to see in the future if we don't make the necessary steps that are essential, particularly those of us who have the opportunity to do so. And then we say, we ain't going to the polls. What do you say, Tony Thompson?
In fact, you've said it well. I like the use of the word. I like the word that you're using. It's not normal, nor natural, nor biblical to suggest that any God would wish to preside over the massacre, murder, and genocide of its people. None. I don't care which particular denomination that particular God comes from. That's not something which to my mind is biblical soundly. I'm a pastor's son. I'm telling people that. Not a very, very not in the sense that I followed in that tradition, but I'm a pastor's son. Some of the things I know about. And I simply say this to say that we cannot have a discussion simply couched in religious and religiosity. We must begin to understand the processes which forms the challenges which we now, some of the processes which forms some of the challenges we now face. We must seek to understand what the role of Israel in the Middle East is all about. Why does Israel seem to be the attack dog in every instance for the American government, and whether or not that's something good and which governments across and around the world should speak to. Clearly, Netanyahu was doing the bidding of the Americans, even though the Americans don't say so up front, and the Americans simply stepped in to clean it up. Trump realized that he was on the loose, and he had to make sure he could control him, and he had to scream at him today. He had to scream at him, stand down, stand down. That's what he said to Netanyahu, stand down. He didn't like it, Netanyahu. I'm sure he didn't like that. He threw him under the bus. Yes. But that's not something which is ordained from God. No.
Attorney Thompson, I'm glad you mentioned it, because you see, God allows people free choice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, leaders make decisions that are not necessarily, we always talk about what is in the best interest of the Bahamian people, what is in the best interest of the Israeli people, what is in the best interest of the Iranian people. And it has different terminologies and different views by the particular personalities who exercise the power. And unfortunately, the views of people are not necessarily considered, particularly in these autocratic states where the fellow believes he has got supreme power and authority. That is why those of us who have the opportunity to prevent it from happening, please, for God's sake, don't allow it to happen. Because once you start going down that slippery road, some nations may never, ever return. They keep going down, and it gets worse and worse and worse, as you've seen over these many years in the nation, in the states, in the Middle East, where there's this constant war, this constant slaughteration, this constant fighting. You don't want to live in that kind of environment. I'm sure I don't
No,
want to
no.
live in that, not in the
Yeah.
Bahamas. This
Yeah.
is Professor Sidney McGarter, Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network. We have Attorney Thane Thompson. We're having a very interesting discussion. I want to thank Brother Thompson for coming on the show today. And we want you to call in. Callers out there, call in, express your views, 3260271. No, I believe that one is off. 3260272-813-0271. Let me repeat those numbers again. 3260272. 813-0271. This is Professor Sidney McGarter, Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network. We'll be back after the break.
Be heard. Speak your mind and express yourself. Yeah. Call in and participate at 326-0271 or 326-0272. WhatsApp us your concerns on 809-2310. Follow us live on Facebook and globalradio99.5fm.com. Express yourself.
This is Professor Sidney McGarter, Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network 99.5 FM. This is a great day to be in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I certainly am glad that God caused me to be a Bahamian citizen. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I'm thankful to God for that. And I hope you, as Bahamians, would understand the value of being a genuine Bahamian in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Now, let's pray to God that we keep what we have, Bahamians. We want to keep this democracy, make it stronger. We need stronger democracies around the world to prevent all of this kind of tragedy that is going on, lives being lost. And a lot of us don't seem to understand what is happening, what people are going through. We have a clip here about the formation of the State of Israel. We're going to play a good portion of that. We have some 30 minutes or so in the show, and I'm going to ask Attorney Fane Thompson to speak to it. I will speak to it. My producer is going to play about the first 6 minutes of it, and then we will go from there. Mr. Producer, please put the tape on. That's an interesting point there, Attorney Fain Thompson. I think a lot of people need to understand how this Jewish state came to be. One thing I noticed in all that was said, the lack of consultation with the people who were there originally. That stood out in my mind. The Palestinians who were there, no consultation whatsoever.
That's a
That
fact.
That's a fact, yeah. And
That's
I
a fact.
noticed that. I noticed that straight on through. The Zionist movement, those persons who were in Europe,
Yes.
they
Correct.
wanted a state. In fact, it was the British who were
Yes.
responsible for leading
Yes.
and creating the state right where the Palestinians were, and they were not
Yes.
even consulted.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
But see, carnal nature being what it is, Attorney Fain Thompson.
Mhm. What we had in the Middle East in 1948 was a group of people who were suffering both the challenges of being abused in Europe. I'm talking about European Jews and those who unfortunately allowed themselves to be the objects of abuse of the indigenous people who they found in Israel once they were relocated to Israel. Palestine at the time. The Palestine at the time was dominated by 90% Arab. Not Arabs, Palestinians. Palestinians.
Yeah.
They're 90%. They didn't call themselves Arabs. They called themselves Palestinians.
Palestinians.
And there was never a time when there were no Jews there or Israel Jews there, because Jews were living in Palestine at the same time as Palestinians were. It was when the Zionist movement relocated there to, as it were, create the greater Israel. Based upon really what amounts to, in my humble view, biblical myth. That was when difficulties began, and from there just went from unfortunately bad to worse. And they've been fighting ever since. Literally,
yes, they have been.
They've been fighting ever since 70 plus years.
Gee, that's a long time.
Now, Sidney, let me say this because you thought there are some cynical people out there, and I'm pretty sure you got people like the U.S. Embassy and around the place who like to listen to these shows. The fact of the matter is, terrorism can never be justified. Let me make it clear, so they don't, Let me make it clear. Terrorism can never be justified, but some people view what we may call a terrorist a freedom fighter. Now, October 7th, for example, is a classic example of the development of over many, many years of a deep resentment. So much so that now Palestinians are not contemplating anything except very militant attempts to remove the Israelis from about them. Well, I think that point in history is past. They must now find a way. They have to find a way to live together as one, but not under the heels of Netanyahu's regime, because he is not going to be a nice guy, and he's showing that.
Yes. Yeah, that is very, very serious. And the thing is that, you're not going to have peace when you're constantly fighting. We've been fighting now for some 70 years. Yeah. And we have to find a way to coexist peacefully. And that is possible if we're prepared to do the things that are essential to bring it about.
Yeah.
Because we have the ability to think, to reason, to plan, because we all suffer when you have a war. Nothing good comes out of it except the fellas who want to make money.
Yes, exactly.
Over the loss of life.
Yes. Certainly the biggest beneficiaries in the Middle East right now are the military arms industry. They're the only people making money right now in the Middle East, because Israel as a state, as a nation, is now facing ruin. And Iran as a nation is now facing ruin because of literally every bomb that the Americans that the Israelis had to fire off to defend their country cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Wow. And Israelis are now trying to flee the state of Israel. And the same applies to Iranians. You cannot live in peace when the only people making money are military industrial complex, businessmen who know this is a great place to sell a bomb. This is a great place to sell an expensive aircraft, because I know that the American government will underwrite the check. The Israelis will need the weaponry, et cetera, et cetera. The only people benefiting in that part of the world right now is McDonnell Douglas as a big arms industry seller. People who basically have no desire nor love, and they sell to both sides.
Yeah, they do.
They sell to both sides. They don't sell to one side; they sell to both sides.
You see how hypocritical this thing is?
Yep.
The hypocrisy of the entire situation. This is why
Mhm.
you came on to discuss this, because we want to see the real picture as it really is.
Yeah.
And when you're selling to both sides, you're harming both sides. So
That's
now
right.
you are benefiting from whatever the proceeds are, and a
Yeah.
whole lot of lives are lost as a result of it. And that's not good for any country at all, the loss of human life, because there's enough on this planet for every
For all
man,
of us.
woman,
That's
and
right.
child to live
That's right.
peacefully on God's earth.
That's a fact.
That is
That's a
not
fact.
happening.
Sidney.
That is not happening at all. So those of us, and like I'm going to repeat this to the Bahamian people, those of us who have the opportunity to live in a democratic society, we have to make sure that it gets stronger. A stronger democracy would be a bulwark against greed and wickedness and
Mhm.
dictatorship by personalities who will try to rise themselves up, or their team will rise up to bring destruction and harm. This is why I'm saying that places like Sudan, you got two fellas over there fighting, and all they're doing is
Oh,
tearing
yeah.
up the place.
Killing each other. Yeah, that's right. Killing each other. That's right. That's right.
Yes.
That's
You
right.
see, so,
That's right.
we wouldn't want to see that kind of thing spread here,
Yeah.
knowing that we have a very limited number of people in this country, and it won't take much to just wipe us off the map. And we are losing too many of our males. And I always tell the men, you got to stick around till Christ come back. But the point is, even in these circumstances where we have all this conflict, one with the other, one person against another person, one group against another person, even to a smaller degree. But the point is, we have to understand what it is we have in our hand that we can use to strengthen the democracy in our country. And
And I think,
because of the fact that some people didn't have the opportunity to do it and have been under the gun for 70 years or even more than that. And it's sad. It's very, very sad. Large population. You're looking at Iran, 90 million plus.
that's right. That's right.
Big nations, millions
That's
and
right.
millions, millions of people. And so this is the sort of thing we have to look at.
And Sydney, hey, Sydney,
Go
just on
ahead.
the point of the size of Iran, I thought it was interesting as I was watching this particular war unfold, and many of us have watched the so-called war between Iran and Israel unfold. And I said to myself, in the absence of the United States, there's no way that Israel could beat Iran. There's no way in the absence of the United States. But having said that, I said even with the United States at their back, that war of attrition which they started, bombing here, bombing there, bombing here, bombing there, Iran had 90 million people to die. If Israel only has 4 million. Of the 9 million people who live in Israel, 4 million are Jews, so to speak, so-called Israeli Jews. And because the remainder are Arab Israelis.
Yes.
So I said to myself, this is a madness to begin such a war by a man known as Netanyahu. It was a madness. He must have gambled that the Americans had to come to his aid, because there is no way in a long-term scuffle, rocket for rocket, bomb for bomb, that the Israelis could have won. There's no way, because of the sheer number and the sheer size of the country. It's a fraction of the size of Iran, and the population is 9 million people. Sorry, four out of 9 million people, and half of them. Yeah, it's just ridiculous that to contemplate such a war. A man like Hitler should be proud right now. He said, "Boy, that guy crazy. He get my respect." He must be saying to himself, "Gee, this man he has to be nervy to start such a war." But you see, he had the Americans at his back. But only cowards come with bullies.
Yes.
And you like that. Only cowards come with bullies.
Yes. You're quite right about that. The lines are open 326-0272, 813-0271. James, you want to hear your response to these things, because we have to look at these things objectively, because it's going to have an effect on us in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and we must not take anything for granted. While we are relatively in peaceful times, it could worsen if we play games with what we have. That's why God asked Moses, what is that in your hand? Do we know what we have in our hand? To avoid, I'm saying we need to avoid some things. That is why these things are written for our learning, upon whom the ends of the world will come. Are we learning from the experiences of other nations? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. Are we learning anything? And if we are learning anything, what is it that we are learning? And what is it that we are prepared to do in order to save our own country from such confrontation in the future? Because you do not know who may be in your midst, just lying very quietly. And all of a sudden you hear something just erupts
Mhm.
and you have an emergency. And they never tell you when they're coming. It just happens. And I think we need to be prepared for those kinds of things. Living in the kind of world that we have, with the kind of communications we have, things can happen very, very quickly, and we could easily be overtaken if we are not observant and watchful. That's why God tells us, watch and pray, that we may be worthy to escape all these things which shall come to pass, because they will come to pass. But the point is, are we preparing ourselves to avoid what is happening? Because some people got this doomsday attitude in their head to believe that we can't do anything to protect ourselves. Oh, this is going to happen. And they have these religious ideas and religious views which are not biblically sound. Yes, some things are going to happen. Carl, I'm going to come to you right now. Yes, some things are going to happen. But you can avoid and escape those things by taking the appropriate action that is essential to save the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Caller, you're live on air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Professor, I agree with you. When you look at it, what's going on, when you get so many people coming into your country, it gets to a point where your country becomes so saturated, they decide that they want to take over. So this should be an eye opener for us. We don't need these demons being imported in here. Every day you look, you see so many people coming into the Bahamas.
Yes, ma'am. I certainly agree with you, because I see a lot of strange faces, and I don't know of any deportations being made in this particular issue. I don't know of the government of the Bahamas taking any hard stand on this particular issue, but it is a very dangerous move to
Exactly.
have people coming in,
We don't know
settling
who they
in.
are, where they
No, we
come
don't
from,
know.
how long they're going to be here, where they live in, what their motive is, and what their intent is. And we just keep flooding this place with these demons, I call them.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, well, thank you for your contribution. Mr. Thompson, do you have a comment on that?
No, I don't. I've that view I've heard many times when I sit in your place from time to time, and that spot where you
Yes.
sit, where I've sat in the past. I've
Yes,
heard that
sir.
comment made by Bahamians. Bahamians are very upset, and understandably so, that they feel that they're falling behind, and that the foreigners who are coming in are not falling behind. In many ways, it generates a despair in some people. They feel that the world is not interested in their needs and their wants. But that's where policymakers have to really sit up and say, well, what is this all about? Maybe we need to go back to that square deal that
Yes.
was offered to us in 1967, 1968,
1967.
1971. Maybe we
Yes,
need
sir.
to ask, where is our deal? Where is our square deal? And maybe politicians have to be invited to look back before they move forward. I don't know.
I think they're going to have to, because some things have been forgotten. And what was proposed to occur in the Bahamas, particularly moving into independence, what we agreed to be as a nation, have we fallen down on a whole lot of things, where we set up this nation in July the 10th, 1973. And the lives of people. I always talk about the constituents where people live. Have you seen any improvement in the quality of life? What is it that you expect from parliamentary representatives? We seem to engage in name calling, we seem to get into some other things. We are not dealing strictly with the issues that affect our daily lives. And that is something policymakers are going to have to look at. Mr. Thompson, I'm going to let you make your closing remarks as we're getting to the end of the show.
Well, I appreciate the invite and I appreciate the opportunity to share. And I hope that the conversation has enlightened some of us. You see, because certain events in certain parts of the world have a much bigger landscape against which we must make our assessments. And I hope that this conversation has been useful. We need more of our young people to be a lot more vigilant about what's going on around them. But do not assume that the Bahamas is the world. It's not. But it's a big part of the world. But it's not the world. We have to ensure that when the opportunity comes, we can advise our policymakers to make good decisions as it relates to humanity, because we are part of the human family. Thank you very much, Sidney, for the opportunity, and I hope And I hope that you have a great day, and your
Yes.
staff and colleagues.
Thank you, Brother Thompson. We appreciate you very much. That's what's been Attorney Thane Thompson, my special guest, and he has made his closing remarks. Now I'm going to make my closing remarks, and my producer's playing the music in my ears. He's telling me to get out of the way. This is Professor Sidney McArthur, Walter Thompson. Bahamians, we have to take seriously our responsibility as citizens of the Commonwealth of Bahamas. I think the discussion was very good. I think some things needed to be said today, and we did say that, of course, tomorrow we expect to have Lady Philippa Russell on the show. She's going to be giving a different perspective on some of these issues, and you're invited to call in as well to make your contribution tomorrow. This is Professor Sidney McArthur, Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network 99.5 FM. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for listening. And we hope that you will pray to God to help us in decision making. And please take advantage to strengthen the democracy that we have in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We don't want any dictators in this place, but you have to participate. This is Professor Sidney McArthur, Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network 99.5 FM. Have a pleasant afternoon.